This episode is sponsored by Factor. Welcome back to our home renovation remodel series thing, kitchen build out. This time we're going to get into making the hutches. We have two upper cabinets that rest directly on the countertops. So those have been two pieces that I have concerned myself with zero because I can't even install them until we have countertops here. The countertops are in their process of being manufactured, and I had everything else kind of in place. So this is kind of the next thing that I want to work on. We have a dishes cabinet that's going to sit right here on top of this buffet. And then we have a smaller one that goes in the pantry over there. So we're going to take a look at the pantry one first because it's the easiest and it's also mostly done. So it's going to sit in there on top of the lower unit, which is already installed in there. We have already cut the plywood box pieces. That was back on Donovan's CNC. So I've had those ready to go for a while. They need to be painted and they need the bus bars for the undershelf lighting installed. And then we need to make this face frame to go in here. This one's going to be kind of weird because we have this going tight into drywall on both sides. So we'll have a double scribe. And this wall here has a nice, this kind of thing going on to it. So that's going to be fun to scribe this giant bow into this face frame. Now for the unit that's going to go here, it's basically this whole giant upper section with 5 doors. I'm going to make this all as one giant piece or one giant unit, and we can set it in place so it sets directly onto the countertop. A couple of small details on here that I want to point out. First off, the doors on the upper section, they're all hinged in one direction, and this is set up for putting things away. So the sink and the dishwasher and everything is kind of over here, so as you're putting things away into these upper cabinets, you're kind of going this way and the doors open in the correct direction to make that easier. The upper cabinet section is built basically the same way as the uppers you saw me make in the rest of the kitchen. In the cross section, they have pretty much the same setup. We have the lower rail turn on its side to create that nice little ledge. And then we have the same electrical chase kind of detail down here, the plug mold in the back, and then the countertop or under cabinet lighting going right here. Now one change that I am going to make to this is you can see that the way this is currently designed is this side cabinet section has a bottom and it has a lower rail. What I don't like about that is it's going to be sitting on top of the stone and covering it. So what I want to do is have this unit and this unit too be bottomless and not have that lower rail and have the door come all the way down to the countertop. It shouldn't be too big of a deal once this is installed because we can silicone the two uprights to the countertop so it can't, spread apart. It's going to make it kind of floppy during the build and the assembly, so we'll have to have some temporary supports in there. But I think it's going to be a lot nicer to have this door when you open it, you see countertop, and this becomes essentially like a little appliance garage section with full countertop beneath it, so you could easily store a mixer right behind that door. You could plug it into the plug mold, or we could look at putting receptacles inside the cabinet, whatever. Anyway, I think it's going to be a good spot for that. I don't want to cover the countertop, so we're going to attempt to build this cabinet with no bottom. The other sort of challenge that we had on the same challenge as the other side is that this needs to go all the way to the ceiling, and we have that small 1-inch reveal from the crown molding onto the top rail of the cabinets, so I need to make sure that my heights work out nicely. So I have my story stick from when I did the other uppers that, that I can just verify that everything is the same because, at least in my experience in this room, just because the floor to ceiling height here is one thing doesn't mean it's the same as it is over there. So the distance from my countertop to my ceiling could be different here than it is over there. I'll do the same thing for the pantry, and then we'll head down to the shop and start making I don't know, let's make some stock for the face frames, I guess. Get that kind of knocked out and out of the way. Close enough. Okay. Okay, I've cut all the mortises and now I'm just going through and getting all of the screw holes set up and ready to go. It's going to be a lot easier to do now than when this thing is all assembled. And then I'm also running the screws in just to cut and establish those threads. So that again, once this is actually assembled, it's super easy to get these hinges on while they're, vertical. This also helps me make sure that everything is correct, so that there's no surprises, hopefully. When it's time to do the final install of the doors, I can make sure that the hinges fully seat into the mortises. There's no extra gunk down there getting in the way, keeping them from sitting down flat in the mortise. If you had a little bit of junk down the corner along the edge or something, that would affect the fit, and the hinge would be in there all funky and racked. Okay, looks good. Back the screws out, and that's it. I think at this point, with all these mortises done, I can go through and do the glue up on the face frame. And the face frame will be done at that point, I think. Aside from all of the things we're going to add to this cabinet along the way here. Eat stress-free this summer with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including the most popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, and small bites. And as you can see, I got into these smoothies already before filming this. This box did come with 6 of these. I tend to get wrapped up in what I'm working on, making Factor a go-to lunch solution. I can pick a meal and in 2 minutes I'm eating a full lunch and I can get back to what I'm working on. Or if I'm in a funk, I can grab a smoothie or a juice for a great energy boost. Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, who I've worked with in the past, and with a wider array of meal plans to choose from, there's something for everyone. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use the code Cremona50 to save 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month's orders. Again, that's Cremona50 at Factor75.com. Thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this video. So I'm gonna let this chill and just kind of cure out for a bit before I add the floppy side, just to make sure this is all locked in, because I will have to support the sides with the other uprights. I don't want to tweak anything. So while that's just kind of sitting here for a bit, I can working on making some of the other stuff. We have the paneling for the sides, and back in here to make this whole U-shaped area gets paneling, the side gets paneling, and then we also have the core bolt bracket things which go underneath this rail. I'm going to do those first because they're easy. So I got my pattern from the plans, and I got some stock here. I'm going to make both of these as a single unit. So I'll prep the stock and just tack 2 pieces together and then just cut out and refine the shape of the whole unit as one. And then when I'm done, I can just pull them apart and I'll have 2 basically identical pieces. without having to go through the work of making a template and pattern routing and all of that. So these are just going to sit on here dry for now. They can get attached later on after the sides are attached to the stiles. I want to have this off of here so I can flush up the side panel to the stile before gluing this thing and getting it in my way. So at least it's there, it's ready to go once we have the paneling installed. And I thought, as I'm gluing this next stile on here, a couple of the pros and cons, I guess, of making templates, or things to think about that you might not have thought about with making templates versus going straight to your work pieces like that. Obviously, making a template that allows you to then batch, flush trim as many parts as you want. That's one thing. The bigger pro of making a template, though, regardless of how many parts you have, is that you're typically going to make that template out of some material that's easier to shape and fair. So in my case, it's typically going to be like a 1/4 inch MDF. So it's only a 1/4 inch thick, so you don't have that much material to actually, remove to fair your curves or make your shape or whatever. That's going to make actually making your shape a lot easier. And the fact that it is, well, in my case, MDF, that's a much easier material to like sand and finesse than solid wood or even plywood or something like that. So those are your bigger advantages. In this case, with these shapes, the geometry isn't anything too crazy. The curves are pretty gradual, and they don't have to be like an exact fit to something else. So if they're just like a little bit off of my template line, it's not a big deal. It's just more that they look consistent and accurate. So, and they're small. So I'm like, I really don't feel like making a template and then flush trimming and putting a bit in the router and all that set up to actually flush trim 2 small little pieces. I'd rather just real quick stick them together and shape them as one thing. But for more complex shapes, it's going to be a lot easier and more convenient to do that with something else other than 1 inch thick stock, like I have in this case. Here's a stock for the paneling. So I have these pieces here, which are going to go back in here along the wall above the backsplash. And then, well, these won't get installed until much later on when we're doing all the trim work, but at least they're made and they're ready to go in. These 2 big pieces, these are going to become the sides, like the inside side and the outside side. And like most of these side panels on this is going to be asymmetrical, because in this case we have the thickness of the face frame that gets added, or I guess subtracted from the front one. And then we have the casing for the case opening that's going to be lapped over the back panel. So that has to get accounted for as well. So these are going to be different widths. So I'm going to run the tongue and the groove on each edge, and then I'll rip them apart at the end to get them down to their final width for what I need. But that's it for that, I guess. I'm going to go set up the router table, and we'll make some V-groove paneling once again. Okay, for those who like to ask, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently? This time I have a good answer for you. I would cut all these domino mortises into all of these face frame pieces before gluing it up into a single unit. So speaking of things that I would do differently, here's another one with this. So when I did the uppers for the side panels, they had the same thing going on. They had two pieces of V-groove. And what I did is I glued the two pieces together and then sent them off to paint. And what I found out is that it is incredibly difficult and annoying to try and get paint down into the bottom of that V-groove. It was pretty horrible. So this time what I'm going to do is just send this off to paint like this, and I have my groove panels here. Those will get painted separately, and then when it all comes back to the shop, we build the box out. I'll just install these just like a normal piece of paneling onto there. It's going to be a lot easier to paint it all like that, because you can actually get in here really easily with the paint and not have to try and like spray down into a valley and hope that it kind of gets decent enough coverage. So this thing is pretty much ready for paint. I'm going to spend some time here cleaning it up, flushing up the seams, and then it's off to paint. My painter's been pretty bored. He's been asking for work, so this should keep him busy for many, many hours. This is going to be a lot. Okay, while that one is off getting painted, I'm going to jump into the Hutch cabinet for the pantry. So this is all the carcass box material that we cut on Donovan's CNC, and it needs the groove in here for the bus bar that's going to power the under shelf lighting. And then once I get that groove taken care of, I'll start running through and getting some face frame stock made up for this guy. So just for some context of how I have this set up here, I have two indexing positions for each style based off of this domino hole. I have the final install, and then I have the scribe positions. So when I put this cabinet up there, I can put the scribe position on the dominoes, and that'll set this rail or the style 3/4 of an inch too far in, I can scribe 3/4 of an inch off of this side, and then when I reset it onto the new position, the final position, it'll be in place in its final spot. The other side is similar. It only has a 1/2 inch scribe, so it's just a little bit of a different offset. And the reason why this is a groove and not a bunch of domino holes is because I don't have that much travel on my fence, and this is only a one-time thing, so just having a groove is enough to catch the dominoes and get my alignment where it needs to be, left to right, for that scribe thing. So I'm all set. We're gonna bring this thing upstairs, get it in place, and scribe those stiles. This one is much better. Whoever framed this wall set it pretty darn plumb. It just has a little bit of a curve in it. I'm touching here at the bottom, and I'm touching here at the top. So I think all I'm going to do is go onto the shop and rip it to final width with the back bevel on there. And then just use the hand plane just to touch up the top and the bottom until it just gets in there just a little bit tighter. Okay, that one is scribed in as well, so now we're going to head back down to the shop and finish building up this face frame. Okay, that takes care of the face frame, and what I'll do here is I'll use the box as a clamping jig, so when I glue the 3 connections together, I'll do it with the face frame dry fit onto the box. That way the legs are exactly where they need to be. If anything's weird with the geometry of the box, the face frame will follow it. And to prep it for paint, I'll also sand that directly here on the box so I don't damage any of the connections, because this thing is going to be pretty floppy. When I take it off, I'll attach a temporary brace to the bottom side, and I'll have that attached all the way through painting up until the time that it actually gets installed. So just a little bit of glue up and paint prep, and then this thing can head off to the paint shop as well. Okay, while the pantry cabinet's off at paint, we're gonna jump back to this thing. So it's ready to go back into the shop and get fully built out into an actual cabinet. Before I actually can set this though, I need to make and install the charging station that goes back in here in this cutout. I don't really feel like doing that right now. I feel like just kind of getting this knocked out, getting the physically larger task done. And for the most part, this will be pretty mindless because I did all of the figuring out and whatnot when we did the upper cabinets. So this is just going to be like the upper cabinet's just really, really big. So I'm gonna head down to the shop, start cutting plywood. We got bus bar grooves to cut. We got shelf pin holes to cut. We got things to cut the sides. We have that bottom rail for the, I forget whatever we call it, the upper cabinet section thing. The ones that don't go to the countertop. We have the same setup as the uppers with the 3 holes for the closure mechanism, the plunger, and the magnet, and then the light switch to actually turn the lights on and off when any of the doors open. So there's plenty of things to do, but for the most part, it should be mostly mindless. Okay, that one went just fine, but this one, I don't know, I wasn't thinking when I did this, but those domino mortises are way too deep. So I blew through the face frame as I was installing those. You know, it's always something. I'm gonna keep building up the carcass, probably omitting the back, and then I will I'll patch those and send it back to paint, and I'll repaint this style. It's not a huge deal, it's just an annoyance because it's something that I'd rather not be doing right now. This hole. So that is as far as I'm going to take this one for now. I've left the backs and the top cavity top part off of here. Back to the paint shop. We will fix this situation and then we can finish up the rest of the plywood box stuff. But this will be a quick fix, just an annoying one is all. Okay, while that's back in the paint shop, we're going to work on this charging station thing. I feel like that's the constant theme of this video is, well, something's off with paint, we're going to do something else. So this should go pretty quickly. I did draw a quick model that you can see here to get an idea of what we're building. Nothing super crazy. Should just be a little bit of milling and chopping of wood. So there's the main charging station box. I glued up a couple scraps of white oak plywood from the drawer bottom stock. That's going to make up the bottom, which is just structural. You're never going to see the bottom at all. The plug mold and some filler strips will cover that up. So next I want to just get into the lid. And I'm kind of making this on the fly, which is kind of fun for me. So for the lid, for the closure mechanism, what I think I want to do, I was originally going to put some like tabs or something up underneath here. But I think it's going to be a far cleaner and more elegant look if I rabbet the whatever this top filler piece is, and then I do the opposing rabbet on the lid, so that when the lid closes, it closes into a rabbet on this piece. That's going to be nice and clean and seamless as you open it up. There won't be any obstructions or things like that the lid catches on, and the lid will be fully supported across its entire length. So that's one little detail. The next detail is going to be the hinges for the lid. So originally, and this is how it's drawn in the plan, was to use the butt hinges, the same ones that we're using on all the doors in the kitchen, and mount those in here like that. And you'll see the hinge barrels as you're looking into the cabinetry. But as I'm thinking about this, I don't really like that idea, because then those barrels kind of get in the way, because this surface here, the lid and the back and the sides, are all flush with the countertop. So as you're kind of cleaning or you're trying to slide things in and out of there, I think these barrels are going to get in the way and just be, they won't be very functional in the space. So I opted to do some concealed hinges like these ones. So that's what we're going to install in the lid for the actual hinging. And just for comparison, this is the concealed hinge that we'll use when we make the pantry door, and that's the tiny hinge that we'll use here. So to install these hinges, I bought this jig, which makes it quite a bit easier. So it's all based off of the slot and a guide bushing in the router with a straight bit. And that's going to create the overall slot for the overall, like, I don't know, outside shape of it. And then there are these slidable doodad things right here that create stops that allow you to cut the deeper area right here, where the actual hinge mechanism folds down into when the thing is closed. So you have a two-step slot for these. And then here are some of my test setup pieces, I guess you could call them. So the first one I did, it fits in there, but it is a little bit loose, and there is a little bit of a gap around the outsides. So what I did there is I made my guide bushing a little bit smaller. I put a piece of blue tape around the outside, which reduces its diameter, makes it a bit tighter, and now it fits more like that. There's still a little bit of a gap in there. I can still shift this side to side a little bit, but I think that's going to be good enough for this. I could probably do another piece of tape around there, but I think this is going to work out just fine. So now I spent some time with the jig and I got my router all set up. I'm going to go ahead and run through cut the mortises for these hinges. These are going to be cut in 2 passes or 2 steps. So again, there is the first pass, which is going to create the overall mortise for the entire body, and then we'll slide those stops in. I'll make a second pass at a deeper depth, which is going to provide the clearance for the deeper section of that hinge. Okay, who's been holding their breath to see if I can get 4 hinges, 8 mortises to all line up? Looks like it's gonna line up just fine. So that's a nice, I don't want to say surprise, but it worked out just fine. So one little trick I did here is I haven't cut my lid down to create a gap on the left and right. The lid is still the same length as the front piece, so I can reference from the ends of each to each mortise location. Now that I have the mortises actually cut, I can go through and take a little bit off of each end to create my gaps on the ends for clearance as that lid closes. But doing it this way, I don't have to worry about any kind of offset based off of a little gap that I leave on the ends of the lid. So that makes alignment quite a bit easier. So now that I have those in there, I think I can pretty well wrap the construction up, cut the lid down to final size, create the rabbets for the stops, and then just get everything kind of put together. And I think that's going to be pretty much it. And then we can get into some finishing, I think. I got a few coats of finish onto the box and got it reassembled, same finish as the drawer boxes. And now this thing should just slide in here. I made the pocket a little deep so that I can shim it up into place. And it's still sitting just a little bit below the surface here. But I think what I'm going to do is leave it in here for now. We'll set the hutch on top of it, and then I can shim it up into the hutch so it all kind of planes out really nicely. So let's head back out and get that hutch finished up. There's just a few little things left to do on that thing. I have the top of the right compartment to install. I just had a temporary piece on there to keep it from flopping around during transport. And then I can cut and fit all the back panels. I knew this was going to be a multi-part back since this cabinet's so big. So I set it up for the back to be inset into the boxes. And then from there, I think we just have the wiring stuff to take care of. We have the electrical chase on the underside of those upper cabinets to take care of. And then I need to install the wiring and route the wiring for the in-cabinet lighting for the tall left and right compartments.
piece of tip up. Over here, look. A little too far over this way.
So excitingly, there it is in place, and that was actually the second time that Elena and Carter helped me lift this thing into position. They're out here yesterday, we put it up here, and I scribed the bottom of the whole cabin to the countertop. That was something in the back of my mind I figured I'd have to do because it's really hard to get everything to line up perfectly. All the different panels, the end cuts could be a little bit out of square in either direction, so I figured it'd be a little bit off when we put up there to begin with. My biggest gap was the 16th, so I scribed 3/32 of an inch off the bottom, and now it's back up there, it's sitting on the countertop quite a bit better. Okay, so lastly, we're gonna head back into the pantry and finish this thing up. So I got the box all assembled and set into place, and I pre-glued the dominoes into the face frame. So all I have to do now is just get everything lined back up. I'll start the dominoes into their mortises. Then I can throw some glue onto all the dominoes and send that face frame home. Okay, there is the pantry. That cabinetry is done. And so is this one. So I'm pretty excited about this. That takes care of all of the cabinetry making, or at least the box carcass making. I am 100% done with plywood, and I don't have to do any more plywood related things, I don't think, for the rest of this project. So for those of you keeping track, that is 22 sheets of 3/4 inch pre-finished maple that went into all the cabinetry that's in here. And with this thing here, you finally get a feel for like this wall not being so incomplete and empty, and it starts to feel a little more real with like this being the middle of the circulation space with the doorways on either side. So it's definitely come a long ways, and now that we have all the cabinetry in here, we get a real good feel for the overall like perimeter of the entire kitchen, how it's all gonna feel and how the whole thing is gonna look. And this one piece definitely ties everything together. And I addressed it last time, but yes, the countertops have started to go in. The first round of install is done, and we're just waiting on the second round to complete before the countertops are fully done. This was one of 6 videos that I'm currently shooting, so that's been fun. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on the Hutch cabinet or anything in the kitchen or back in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment. As always, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.